Round 4 of the Leroy Miata Cup. We were at East Lake in the Captain's Stadium this week with the tightest and most technical of the tracks on the circuit this year. This track was designed to trip drivers up, and it worked better than anticipated. It was we got a lot of compliments on the track. It was very, very fun, but definitely very challenging, and it shook up the standings quite a bit. This is a track that rewarded driver precision and getting a really good corner exit, because there was two very tight corners with very long straightaways following it. So corner exit was key, and there was a couple of drivers that just nailed it and got phenomenal times. So taking a look at the position changes throughout the day, Charles pretty much dominated, getting into first place by the 4th round and just hanging on the whole day. Andrew Mercer came up from 6th to 2nd on his final run, which was huge for his score. Brian Nels also did very well, playing around in the top 5 positions all day and eventually landing in 3rd. The racing was extremely tight. The top 10 or so places barely breaching a second apart from each other, and positions 3, 4, and 5 having a grand total of 0.06 seconds spacing in there. Did the math on some of this. Chris Pete lost to Jonathan Staggs by 5 inches of car, and the grand total distance from those 3 positions was 4.8 feet. So if this was a side-by-side race, those 3 cars would have been bumper-to-bumper photo-finish across the line. So we're going to take a look at Charles's run. He's on the bottom here, and we're putting it up against Jonathan only because that was the next fastest car that I had quality video recording from, and from a similar angle to compare. So I found a lot of things interesting about these runs. The launches are very similar, and you can see both cars get to the first pin cone at basically the same time, doing the same speed. So it's a good equal start. So both cars get to the second pin cone about the same time. There's where the differences start to creep in. On the top, Jonathan got a much tighter run out of corner number 2. And the big thing to note here is that if you look right now, they're different distances from that next cone, but both cars are at the same RPM. So Charles took a wider line and got on the throttle at the same time and ran out of gear at the same time, but was further away from the next cone. And if we back that up here, you can see the line difference with how tight both cars are to that cone on the right-hand side. So we'll replay back, we'll get them caught back up to where they are here. Now, Jonathan is ahead for most of this run, and still winds up losing to Charles by almost half of a second. So not a whole lot going on through this middle section. It's pretty much mirror image, side by side. That initial lead gained off of corner 2 is held, and coming back into that same corner this time, again, about the same lead here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the bottom video and we're going to reset them so they're both at the same point at this point, so you can see just how much more efficiently Charles gets through this next corner. So we're reset. Cars are at the same point. It's even Stevens, and watch how much of a lead he picks up going through this next corner. And the key is Charles is dumping it back into first gear, and by dumping it into first gear, he's able to get that car to rotate, and then he's able to get back on the power so much sooner. And look how much of a gap he's pulled out. That's almost 3 or 4 car lengths of a lead going into the final section. And this is pretty much the amount of gap that he maintains to the finish. And he beat the field by over 0.2 seconds. We actually there was a test and tune event the next day at the same track, same layout, and I got to do about 40 or some odd runs testing some things here. And using the 1-2 shift, I was able to match Charles's time the next day. So the key was him figuring out that shift early in the day and getting it dialed in, because it is definitely tricky. You do it wrong, you slow down. If you get it just right, you pick up a bunch of time. Brian Nels also moved up the list relative to past races this week, finishing in 3rd, which is his personal best, and he definitely figured out this course early. If you look at the chart of position changes, he was the first one, and his first run he put down the best time of anybody, so he had a big jump figuring it out early, and then kept chewing away at his time to stay up at the top. And he was in 2nd place up until the very last run when Andrew Mercer came in and took it from him. But this was definitely a high day for Brian, and his car with the wrong gearing in it, doing insanely well pulling out of those corners.
You wiggled the cone.
Yeah.
You wiggled that one right there.
Wow.